A logistics company in Memphis posts a warehouse coordinator role on Indeed. Within 4 hours, 340 applications arrive. The hiring manager opens the first 50. Every resume has 5 years of experience. Every cover letter names the specific software stack listed in the job posting. Every LinkedIn profile has 500 plus connections and a 2-year employment history at a mid-sized regional firm. None of those firms exist. The hiring manager doesn't know that yet. She schedules 12 interviews. If you have applied for a job in the last 18 months and didn't hear back, or if you bought a product on Amazon because it had 4.7 stars and 400 reviews, or if you hired a freelancer on Fiverr or Upwork based on their portfolio and client history, you've already been inside this system. You just didn't know it was operating around you. The part that no one is talking about isn't the scam itself. It's the fact that the platforms hosting the scam are structurally rewarded for leaving it in place. That's the question sitting under all of this. Why would Trustpilot, Amazon, LinkedIn, and Indeed fix a problem that their own engagement metrics depend on? In 2023, the Federal Trade Commission published a study showing that fake reviews generated approximately $152 billion in influenced purchasing decisions annually across U.S. e-commerce. That number did not account for AI-generated reviews. It was based on manually created fraudulent content. The World Economic Forum's 2024 Global Risk Report listed AI-generated misinformation as the #1 short-term global risk, above geopolitical conflict, not because of political deepfakes, because of commercial synthetic content operating at scale inside markets people trust daily. What has changed since those reports? The cost to generate synthetic workers, synthetic reviews, and synthetic professional histories has dropped by roughly 99.6% since 2021. A task that required a paid human content farm operating out of Bangladesh or the Philippines now runs on a $1.20 per month API subscription. The floor just dropped out. A researcher at Stanford's Internet Observatory, Renee DiResta, spent 8 months in 2023 tracing what she called persona infrastructure, not the fake accounts themselves, the services that build them. Here's what the supply chain actually looks like. There are now commercial platforms, some operating openly, some on Telegram, that sell what they call digital professional identities. For between $35 and $200, you receive a complete LinkedIn profile with a 5-year work history at verifiable sounding companies, a headshot generated by a GAN model trained on stock photography, an Upwork or Fiverr account with seeded reviews from a network of other synthetic accounts, a Gmail address with a 2-year account history, and a portfolio of work samples generated by GPT-4 or Claude. The person who buys this isn't necessarily running a fraud operation. Some are legitimate workers in countries where foreign clients won't hire them due to geographic bias. That's real. That complexity matters. But the majority are entering competitive labor markets and displacing actual human applicants, not by being more qualified, but by gaming the platform's ranking algorithms. Upwork's algorithm surfaces freelancers based on response rate, job success score, and review velocity. Synthetic accounts are optimized for all 3 metrics from day one. The legitimate worker with an authentic 18-month track record loses the search ranking to a synthetic identity that was built to look like a 3-year veteran. And the platform, Upwork in this case, collects a service fee on every transaction, including the fraudulent ones. Stop. Because the framing you probably carried into this video is that this is a story about bad actors, scammers, fraudsters operating outside the system. That frame is wrong, and it's wrong in a way that makes the actual problem invisible. Amazon spent $700 million on review fraud detection in 2022. Trustpilot employs a team of over 200 content integrity analysts. LinkedIn has a dedicated trust and safety division with hundreds of engineers. These are not small efforts. They are serious, well-funded, technically sophisticated operations. And the fake economy is growing faster than all of them combined. So ask a different question. What would it take for these platforms to actually solve this problem? And what would they lose if they did? Amazon's product ranking algorithm rewards items with high review counts and high average scores. If Amazon removed all synthetically generated reviews tomorrow, and some estimates from consumer research firm Review Meta suggest 30 to 40% of reviews in high competition categories are inauthentic. Thousands of products would lose their rankings overnight. Seller revenue would collapse. Amazon's advertising revenue, which is tied to search placement and conversion rate, would collapse with it. The platform's business model is partially load-bearing on the fake economy it publicly claims to oppose. This is not a conspiracy. It's a structural incentive problem, and it's one that regulators have barely begun to address. The Federal Trade Commission's updated endorsement guidelines, revised in August 2023, explicitly prohibit AI-generated reviews. The rule exists. Enforcement actions, however, require the FTC to identify a specific company, build a case, and pursue litigation. The agency has roughly 1,100 employees. There are approximately 10 million active product listings on Amazon in the United States alone. The enforcement capacity and the problem scale are not in the same universe. What complicates this further, not all synthetic reviews are created by sellers trying to inflate their own products. There is a second, less discussed category: negative synthetic review campaigns, where a competitor pays to flood a rival's listing with one-star AI-generated reviews. This is coordinated reputational destruction. Smaller sellers, often genuine small businesses, have been wiped off the first page of search results in days by campaigns they didn't know were happening and had no mechanism to appeal. One seller documented on the Seller Central forums in 2024. A small cookware company based in Ohio lost 60% of monthly revenue in 3 weeks after what appeared to be an orchestrated negative review event. Amazon's internal investigation took 47 days. The damage was permanent. Go back to the hiring manager in Memphis. She's not just dealing with fake resumes. She's dealing with an AI-assisted interview preparation market that has created what researchers at MIT's Work of the Future initiative call capability laundering. A candidate who cannot perform the actual job can now pass a structured behavioral interview using real-time AI assistance tools, including interview coaching apps that feed suggested answers through an earpiece or second monitor during a live video call. Interviews conducted on Zoom or Google Meet are now routinely defeated by this method. The technical skill verification happens later, during a paid trial period or after a hire, at which point the company has already invested onboarding resources. The cost isn't just the wasted hire. It's the legitimate candidate who didn't get the role. And it's the honest worker who spent 3 months applying and cannot figure out why a process that used to reward preparation no longer responds to it. Remember the applications. Those 340 applications in Memphis. The hiring manager eventually discovered the fraudulent resumes through a third-party background check service. She had already spent 22 hours in the interview process. The most structurally interesting piece of this is what economists would call the principal agent problem operating at a platform level. Fiverr's business model depends on transaction volume. LinkedIn's business model depends on engagement and premium subscription conversion, which is driven by profile views, connection requests, and in-mail activity. A synthetic professional network is, from a pure engagement metric standpoint, indistinguishable from a real one. Synthetic profiles connect. They endorse skills. They view pages. They generate the behavioral signals that justify LinkedIn's $39.99 per month premium subscription to real users. LinkedIn's parent company, Microsoft, acquired LinkedIn for $26.2 billion in 2016. The platform's valuation depends on its claimed member count and activity metrics. In 2023, LinkedIn publicly reported over 950 million members. Independent research from academic groups, including the Oxford Internet Institute, has suggested that synthetic account penetration on professional networks may be between 10 and 15% of active accounts. That is a number with significant implications for how the platform's engagement data has been reported to advertisers. At some point, this stops being a story about technology. There is a woman in Akron, Ohio, who spent 11 months applying for remote administrative work after her employer downsized in 2023. She applied to over 200 positions. She got 4 callbacks. She updated her resume 4 times based on advice from career coaches. She passed assessments. She attended webinars on ATS optimization. She didn't know that the platform she was applying through had already been colonized by synthetic identities that gained every metric the platform used to surface candidates to employers. She didn't know that some of the job postings she applied to were themselves synthetic. AI-generated listings posted by data harvesting operations collecting resumes for lead generation with no actual job attached. She wasn't losing to better candidates. She was losing to infrastructure. The thing that is actually at stake here is not fake reviews or fraudulent freelancers as isolated phenomena. It's the slow erosion of legibility, the ability to tell what is real inside systems we depend on to navigate our economic lives. When a doctor researches a treatment protocol and the top search results are SEO-optimized AI-generated medical content. When a small business owner chooses a vendor based on reviews that a competing vendor purchased. When a hiring manager has no mechanism to distinguish a fraudulent application from a real one. What they lose is not just time or money. They lose the ability to trust the signal. And once the signal is gone, once the mechanism that is supposed to surface the best product, the most qualified candidate, the most trustworthy vendor is compromised. Markets don't self-correct. They degrade slowly, then suddenly. So what happened in Memphis? The logistics company implemented a new hiring policy. All candidates must complete a synchronous camera-on skills demonstration using a shared screen before any further interview. Applications dropped by 94%. Quality of hire, measured by 90-day retention, went up. That works for one company that had the resources and the awareness to adapt. The structural problem: the platform incentive misalignment, the regulatory enforcement gap, the AI tooling cost collapse. None of that is resolved by one company changing its hiring process. The FTC's updated rules are real but under-enforced. The EU AI Act, which came into force in August 2024, includes provisions specifically targeting synthetic content used in commercial transactions. But member state enforcement infrastructure is still being built. Amazon, LinkedIn, Upwork, and Trustpilot have all released updated synthetic content detection policies in the last 18 months. The detection arms race is real. The question these platforms have not answered publicly, and the question regulators have not yet forced them to answer, is this: what percentage of your engagement metrics, your active user counts, and your transaction volumes are generated by accounts you know to be inauthentic? And what would your business model look like without them? That answer exists inside those companies right now. We just haven't seen it yet.